Do you do stills with that?
Oh wow, you had a job. Really like help create the mood of the it's not like you have to wait till scene 3 to get into the.
Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Transmedia SF, our June event. Apologies for lack of chairs. Very happy to see everybody here. My name is Maya Zuckerman. I'm one of the co-founders of Transmedia SF. And we are very, 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 very happy to be here in Westernize and the PGA. PGA is our co-host for tonight, the Producers Guild of America's Northwest office division. I wanted to thank Westernize. You are inside of Westernize Productions. There's a few other groups here, and I'll get Brandon in a second to let us know about the different groups here. Also, a quick thank to Fordella, our ongoing sponsors. And, and the drinks tonight by Nasa Mini Drink and Lagunitas Brewery. So I just wanted to invite Brandon here, who is the co-chair of the PGA Northwest and also the executive producer of Westernize. So Brandon, come and tell us a little bit about this amazing space we're in.
Well, actually, I'm going to let Marcello speak about the space since I'm going to be up here. So I don't know, maybe Marcello, come up and talk about the space, and then I'll talk about the Producers Guild to you folks.
All right, sounds good.
And
so, hi, my name is Marcello Grande. I'm the creative director at Westernize Productions. I'm also one of the partners. Brandon and I are brothers, we're family members, and also, of course, business partners. We've been in business for about 10 years and moved into this building, which is a really unique, fantastic space, about 3 years ago. What makes it unique is that you've got a lot of different disciplines sharing a space here. So you've got us, you've got Elastic Creative upstairs, and you've got Rough House Editorial. You also have a company called Serious Sound. These are kind of the 4 big companies in this building. And together, we work harmoniously. We're very seamless. We've got an integrated infrastructure. We've got a team of somewhere in the neighborhood of about 45, 50 creative people. We've got amazing management. And what we do motion graphics and visual effects. We do a lot of corporate high-tech work. We do full production from concepting and previs all the way through delivery. We also have a very robust interactive department where we build applications, consumer software. We do multi-touch experiences for everything from museums to storefront. Very diverse group of people. And it's a fantastic place to bring a project. It's an awesome place for a tour. And if you're interested in any of the work that we do, you can check us out online, westernize.com. You can go to elasticcreative.com. You can go to roughhouse.com. If you have any questions for me after the presentation, please feel free to ask me. I'm available online. You can always send me an email. I love to make new friends. I'm on all the different social networks. And really, this is a super sweet place. Brandon will tell you a little bit about the PGA, but I think we're unique. There isn't any place that I can think of in San Francisco that operates the way that we do. We've got the best technology and some of the best people around. So I look forward to meeting you and hopefully working with all of you in the future. Thank you.
all right, so for those...
We're doing a wonderful new experiment on July 20th to 21st. It's our first Transmedia Jam. Think about it kind of a hackathon meets create-a-thon meets 48-hour movie meets jam, game jam. And we are tweeting about it and trying to actually get more people to participate. We're looking for volunteers, still looking for sponsors. We have 2 judges, Jason Diedrich from Fordella and David Austin from Turner Media Camp. I'm very, very excited to have both of them on board. We'll have more press about it in the next month, as we do, as you know we do. And one last thing is Elise reminded me. We are tweeting. This is Elise. She's our media planner. and media blogger extraordinaire. And she reminded us to tweet Transmedia SF hashtag and use, tweet and Transmedia SF hashtag and also jam.
Hashtag Transmedia Jam.
Okay, hashtag Transmedia Jam.
Hashtag Transmedia Jam. It's like a pound symbol.
Like a pound symbol, yeah. So anybody wants more information, please come to one of us at the end of the event. And now, now I'm really, really excited to introduce Robert. For those of you who know, Robert is actually the forefather of Transmedia SF. I actually checked when the first meetup on Spoiler was April 27, 2010. Wow. And I think I was there probably June 2010, where I met both Robert and Christopher's over there. And since then, we took over our group since Robert went back to the UK. And we're very sad about that still. We've been keeping in touch over the years, and he does come to the West Coast quite a bit. So we're really, really happy to have him here tonight. He's the CEO and founder of Transmedia Storytelling. It's a company that provides interactive, social, and pervasive cross-platform entertainment and marketing services. Their first service is called Conductor. It's amazing, pervasive entertainment platform, and he'll tell you a little bit about some projects that he's just done and some really cool stuff. So, Robert.
Thank you very much. Hello everyone, thanks for coming tonight. I'm going to be up and down like this as I go to this thing. So, and thank you very much for the fantastic introduction from Maya. It's really great to be back. It was a big shame we had to leave in a hurry actually, because we weren't wanted by the police or anything, but we rushed off last January. And so, can everybody see? So this is my life in pictures. In the 90s, I was working as a marketing consultant in technology, in telecommunications actually. And then in 2000, I quit and I went to film school, the London International Film School in Covent Garden. And then since that time, I made 2 feature films, London Voodoo and Mindflesh. And around about the time Mindflesh came out, it was 2008, I moved to San Francisco. So my wife had a transfer with her firm. Because I'm married to her, I came along with her. And during that period, 2000 to 2008, I thought marketing really got interesting again. Social media, like huge, when we brought out London Voodoo, I mean, there was really no sort of YouTube, still MySpace was popular then, just as we were finishing off. So I came to San Francisco thinking that I was going to do something different, and that's when I really got into transmedia storytelling. And so the presentation tonight is really my sort of view of my interpretation of transmedia storytelling. And that is really this blending of marketing and entertainment, so you don't see the joint. Because I think often, especially if you come from like a mono-media format, if you're from films or something, you say, well, why should I be interested in creating all this other content? And where do I draw the line? Because it's endless, I can keep producing all this stuff. And so, tonight I'm going to explain maybe where I look for inspiration and deciding what content, additional content I'm going to create. So this is our firm, Transmedia Storytelling Limited, and it says here, we power remarkable experiences. So we're a technology company, and we're looking to license our technology called Conductor to other creative people so that they can tell transmedia stories. And this little triangle diagram here shows the way that we approach transmedia storytelling. It's looking at engagement, social media, and content strategy, and using narrative design to inform the decisions that we make around that. And as Maya said, our technology platform, Conductor, now it's a pervasive entertainment platform, which sounds like jargon. It's a network-based intelligence. It's difficult to describe because there isn't really anything else to compare it to. It's a network intelligence which looks to provide connected, personalised experiences. So as your entertainment goes across different platforms, whether it's a web series or a poster or a mobile app or a book, whatever it might be, Conductor is there as this unseen intelligence trying to personalise that experience for the reader as they move, or the viewer as they move between these platforms. So I've got a short video. I've just spent a week in Roswell, New Mexico, and I cut this video together for tonight. So I'm going to show this, and it might give an example, one illustration of the sort of things that Conductor does. So I think I've already said that. So
you need to grab your gun because the aliens are coming. Look what they did my crop out here.
That's one way to react to seeing this. Over 100 yards across with strange patterns inside. That's all part of a scavenger hunt called the Roswell Experience. Erhard says there are 32 different pieces to this extraterrestrial puzzle, explaining the crop circle, and at the end of the scavenger hunt, everyone gets to meet an alien.
Roswell Experience is quite amazing. I've never seen anything like it in this town before. I grew up here, and it's always been in Coleman County, and just everybody knew what was going on.
I went out to eat with my mom the other night at Voodoo campers.
Laptop all the way up?
is it too quiet? How do you turn it up on here?
You could just...
There we go.
You need to grab your gun because the aliens are coming. Look what they did my crop out here.
That's one way to react to seeing this. Over 100 yards across with strange patterns inside. That's all part of a scavenger hunt called the Roswell Experience. Erhard says there are 32 different pieces to this extraterrestrial puzzle, explaining the crop circle, and at the end of the scavenger hunt, everyone gets to meet an alien.
Roswell Experience was quite amazing. I've never seen anything like it in this town before, and I grew up here, and it's always been hometowny, and just everybody knew what was going on.
I went out to eat with my mom the other night at Big D's for hamburgers, and I saw your little newspaper thing, and it seemed pretty interesting.
The Roswell Experience is a transmedia pilot project for next year's UFO Festival, 2013 UFO Festival. Some of the objectives that we wanted to do was we wanted to tell a little bit about the local history, Robert H. Goddard, Billy the Kid. We also wanted to get people from different locations, some of the museums and also some of the businesses. Conductor made, working and creating this experience really easy, and what I mean by that is the businesses were involved. They were getting the story through email. It was doing the tweets for us. It was creating the interactions for us. People were texting back. Part of that being some of the questions that we would ask people. We had the badge system that was really cool that Conductor worked really well with. So the badge system being go to certain locations and earn the Billy the Kid badge, or earn the Oppenheimer badge, or the Goddard badge. So that was some kind of incentive. The point system was really cool. So people could kind of look on the leaderboards. We had notice boards up around town, which is kind of cool. These big scoreboards that we made, and we'd go there, we kind of put people's name or their last 4 digits of their number, which kind of worked out really well. You had to look at your hand and see if you had the M on your hand. If that was true, then you had to text back you were a reptoid. If you didn't, you were a plebeian. It was all programmed in. I mean, we didn't have to worry about anything at that point. The other thing that was really nice about it was we were able to kind of gauge what was going on, because this is kind of a pilot project. We were able to kind of tweak things in the middle of it, which was really great. Conductor's amazing. I mean, it shows me the possibilities, gave us the metrics, the data for next year. We were able to kind of experiment with it on the fly. It's allowed us to kind of hone and refine what we're going to be doing for next year's UFO Festival, which is going to be even better.
Thank you. So basically there's someone telling a story over 32 sort of different locations, and using all kinds of different mechanisms to involve the local community and visitors, and conductors joining up all the dots. Now, one thing that we often say is that we're taking the story to the cloud. So if you've got like a piece of content, it could be a feature film, or it could be a web series or a book, you can take the characters or the story world from that and set it free so that it lives all around us and starts to engage with the audience even when they're not sat at their TV screen, for example. And what we find is that by building these connected experiences across social media, that the characters act as the glue between the different media. So if you've got an episodic show, for example, then they can provide the sort of the connectivity in between the different releases of that.
But who is the curator?
Well, you're the curator, so you're the author, so you create the story and you script it and you anticipate the way that you would like the audience to interact with you. And I'll get on to how you might look at doing that. So Lowlifes was a project that we did while I was in San Francisco, and it's a book, well, a novella, a 10-episode web series, and a blog. And each character in this story had their own media. And we also created a very simple interactive story. So you would go to one of the characters' websites, who was a private detective, and you'd email her and say you wanted to help her with an assignment, and then she would send you out on a quest. And it was very kind of basic, but it was a proof of concept project for Conductor. But what I want to share with you is some of the figures and everything that we got back from this. So the project was very, what do you call it? It was a low budget project, so we spent $500 on this, plus our time. So it was myself, and I did everything that wasn't writing. So Simon Wood, who lives in the East Bay, is a crime fiction writer. And what we wanted to test was, if we gave everything away for free, would people still buy the paid elements on it? And the figures sort of are quite interesting. So $500 we spent on an actress to do the voiceover. We spent $200 for the music, and then there's some other, other sort of fees, expenses, and whatever. And so within the year, so we launched it in January 2011, I guess, and then by last year, our revenue was 1,748, so about three times our budget. And you can look at these figures. And what's interesting is the number of people that actually played, like with Lauren, was like 9%. So we had like 83 people play this game. And often people say, well, why put all this effort into this interactive component if you've only got a small number of people playing it? And I think if you're at an event like this, you've probably seen that sort of pyramid where maybe you've got like 1 or 10% at the top that actually really truly engage, and then everybody else that just wants to sit back. And what I want to show is the way that the revenue and actually the social media activity breaks down. So this line here is views on YouTube. So we did have other social media, but I'm just taking views on our first YouTube video as a kind of proxy for everything that was going on. And this bar here is the revenue from the Kindle sales. So if you notice, we launched in January, and the sales are not actually, on the scale of this graph, the sales are not really picking up. But then something happens in June. Actually, the sales in July overtake the social media activity. And what happened at this point was that the people that were, let's say, the early adopters, or the advocates for us, pushed us up into a top list. And I think what this shows is that there are lots of people out there who only buy from the New York Times bestsellers list, or they only buy from the Amazon top 10s. But by engaging with the early adopters, with the people that really identify with your content, you can leverage that and push yourself up into that other top 10 where the majority of people are. So you shouldn't think of it, well, I'm developing it only for that 8%. You're developing some content that's really engaging because you want to empower those people to help generate word of mouth. And so our company, We Power Remarkable Experiences, is about creating experiences that are remarkable, things that people want to talk about. And you can see this, so So this is a way that I would normally describe this kind of sort of mining for these advocates, that it takes a lot of time kind of drilling to try and find these people that really connect with your property. And you might be going through a lot of revisions during this time, trying to adapt and remake over until you finally get the right formula. But then when you really do get success, then it kind of explodes. So it's worth taking time. And you can see this is another example. So on SlideShare, I put this presentation up on SlideShare, and I sort of tweeted it out. So the people that follow me on SlideShare and the people that follow me on Twitter start to say, oh, this is quite a cool presentation that Robert's done. It gets posted around, and then I got an email from SlideShare saying, this presentation is hot on Facebook right now, and we've put it onto the front page. So there's another example where a small number of advocates have kind of been leveraged up to take it to a wider audience. And I think that's something that's quite important in transmedia when you're looking at, what content do I create for my project. So you might have a piece which is the revenue earning bit, and then you might be thinking, well, I'm going to create some free media, some stuff that I'm going to give away for people. But you should make sure that it's shareable and it can take it round. So I'll just show another video that looks at this, and I'll go on to the next part. Okay, I'll carry on. So what we created was an educational alternate reality game. So we had 600 students across the state of Florida, and they were organised into teams of 5. And so these were children 12 to 17. And each student had a particular role in the project. And what Conductor did was it handled all the registrations, so when they signed up, via email we knew which role they were playing, whether it was the CEO or the CMO and so on. And they were role-playing a senior executive team of a space cargo company. Now this thing ran for 3 weeks, but on the first day, their rocket ship crash lands into a neighbouring village and causes this environmental damage. So now the children have to react to this disaster. They've been given a budget, and what Conductor's doing is it's publishing breaking news videos that a local production company put together, and it's sending out emails to the students based on their particular role, so they're more or less obliged to collaborate in the classroom because they don't all have the same piece of information. We had characters from that town doing Facebook status updates and tweeting, so they get a different perspective. And the children were encouraged to kind of interact with these sort of fictional characters. And they did. They were going on there saying, I'm really sorry what's happened, and we're going to do our best and so on. And it was really, it was really sweet to watch. Now at the start of the second week, they get 2 emails. One that comes through from a whistleblower, and this whistleblower says that rocket ship should never have gone off. The payload was overweight, and I think we're at fault. And the children have to decide what they're going to do with that information, because this was for an ethics and financial responsibility course. And they also get an email from someone from the Department of the Environment, and they say, look, this clean-up campaign is going to cost a fortune, but if you give me a bribe, then I can write a more favourable report. And I was sitting there watching it come in, and someone just like bribed them straight away. And what happens is, so the students get tagged based on the decisions that they make, and so then the story unfolds differently for them. So we personalise that experience. And this is what we're looking to do in all our entertainment, whether it's just like a small personal creative project, or if it's for a brand or for a marketing exercise. And so inside Conductor, we've got contact details for the audience, and a number of sort of parameters that we can tag the audience with. So we can put them into groups, for example, by language, or by how far they've gone through the experience, or by different traits. And just recently, we didn't have this when we did the Florida case study, but we can now create these custom fields. So we've actually built a kind of game engine inside Conductor where you can give, you can set up any number of different parameters. Here I'll show health or stamina. And as people tweet, they might sort of lose health points, and then they need to find somebody else that can, like a medic, that can restore them. They can retweet their tweet in order to get some other sort of health points or stamina. So it's quite interesting. I think the strength of personalising the experience is that if you're out with a friend and they've had a different experience to yours, you want to talk about it and you want to go back and really play through these different paths in the narrative to see how it might play out a second time. So this is something that we did for Roswell. It was alluded to on the video there. It's another example of personalisation. So we found that Twitter hadn't really reached Roswell. There was a few people there, but it just wasn't popular enough. So we switched it up and really went big on text messaging, and we saw that everything really sort of started to take off then when we dropped the. We went less, you know, we pushed Twitter less and went more for text messaging. So here, if you sort of engage with a character, what happens is you get a first text message that says, if you were abducted by an alien and you were brought back to Earth, would you tell anyone or would you keep it secret? So they make a decision, and then the question comes back again, okay, what if you now find yourself impregnated with an alien child? Are you going to give birth to it, or are you going to terminate it? And based on the decisions that they come back with, so here on the top I've got secret or public, or birth or kill, and we can put them into one of these 4 quadrants. So they get like a witty kind of comment back to them about their personality type, about their readiness for alien abduction. And it also means that we can start personalising the experience for them based on the kind of decisions that they made during this game. So again, looking at personalisation, so this was, I said the first game that we did for Low Lives was very sort of basic, just out and back. And what we've done since is updated it to a much more open world story. So now it's like a whodunit, and you have to find the murderer, the murder weapon, and the motive. And you do this by interrogating the characters on text message, on Twitter, or by email. And one of the cool things we've done with the, you won't be able to read that, but one of the cool things we've done with the tagging is if you contact the murder victim, if you contact his girlfriend and you offer your condolences, you say you're sorry, or any of these kind of words that show any kind of sympathy towards her, then she tags you as sympathetic. And when you contact her later in the game, in the story, then she's much more forthcoming with information. So it's another way where we're trying to personalise the experience for different members of the audience. So this is how I wanted to finish up. I'm just going to have this is a feature film project that we're working on right now. So Mask of the Red Death is a short story by Edgar Allan Poe, and it was made, I think, in 1964 with Vincent Price, and we're going to shoot it this November, hopefully. When I say we, it's going to be shot this November. And I just wanted to explain how we approach looking at the transmedia elements of this, because the way this project came about is based on the feature films I've made before. I came back to England. I thought, well, I'm going to go and see the producers that I know from before and get them to use my technology. They should be looking into this. So Jonathan, that is the producer, arranges me to go, Pratten, what's all this transmedia bullshit? So my first thing is, it's marketing, Jonathan, it's marketing, because I know that he knows marketing. And he bought right into it. And you know, when we started the conversation going, I said, it's storytelling, but rather than, if you look at your Twitter feed now, and this particularly applies to publishers, I found, if you look at their Twitter feed, it's all about the book. It's not about the story that's inside the book. I said you could bring the characters to life, you could bring the story world out and have people interacting or at least following a story, rather than have you keep telling people, oh, now we're doing a rough cut, now we're doing a final cut, now someone's broke their fingernail. You know, this type of minutiae of stuff that you're constantly looking for content for the Twitter feed or for the social media stream. You've got a story there, and people would kill to have that kind of story to talk about.
Robert, is it programmable, or are you dealing with real people?
Well, the platform is scriptable. There's no programming language, but you can, you set it up, you tell your story through a number of clicks.
If 80,000 people write to the character and ask 80,000 questions,
it would reply to every single one of them.
who would?
The platform, the technology would reply to them. It's looking word spots, so you tell it what phrases to look for and what decision to make based on the phrase that comes in, and then you would do So when we take a project like this, so you could say there's already a story, there's already a synopsis being written, and we're going to look for opportunities for participation. And hopefully you can see this. So in the bottom here, if you imagine that there's three things that we could ask or invite the audience to do: to think, to feel, or to do. And so we've put it on this axis here. So in the corner here, we've got the outsider. And this is often where people are with their documentaries primarily, but also feature films. They're looking at the issues that are raised in the film. They're looking at it kind of objectively, if you want, as a piece of art or a piece of commentary and commenting on it. Over here is the next sort of development that we frequently see, where you're asking the audience to go explore on their own. So typically, and particularly on a documentary, you'll find that online you click this button and it will take you down a particular avenue. You'll explore another character's story, or you'll look deeper at another particular issue. But at the top, I think, are the two areas that are explored at least right now. And here, this is an area that we call companion. And this is where we're looking at the premise of the film and saying, what if we could take the audience and put them into the character's shoes or walk alongside them? If we can give that audience moral choices, moral dilemmas, and choices that matter, so that they get to feel or understand what it's like to be that character, to be in that position themselves, rather than to sit back here as an outsider, observing and making this commentary, to actually get in and be given a chance to make those decisions. And here we have this actor mode, and this is where we're producing content, but we're letting the audience tell their own story. So it's in the story world, but we're not telling them how they should actually utilise those objects or those elements of story. So for Mask of the Red Death, we put down these 4 different opportunities. So here we'll have a 3-episode web series, which is a prequel to the feature film. And then we have this experience called the Psychothol experience. So one of the characters in the film made his money by being like a drugs baron. He invented the first legal high, like the first legal hallucinogenic drug, like an LSD type thing. And what happens is when you enrol on the website, you get enrolled into the first clinical trial. So in terms of the timescale, it's kind of set contemporary, because the film's, maybe I didn't say, the film's set in the future, it's a post-apocalyptic thing. Then we have this 22ers experience, which kind of bridges the gap. You sign up at the website, you get involved, and we've also got some role-playing, and particularly we have a set of tarot cards, 22 cards, which are basically our marketing collateral. The idea is that we're going to give these away, that they'll be used, they'll be collectible and so on. But also they're used in the film. And an interesting thing, actually I'm going to skip over that one. I'll come back to those. So if you look at the project structure, so the producer's at the top, and then I'm working with the writers. We've got 3 different writers, well 4 different writers, including the feature script writer. And what's interesting is that we've brought the branding and graphic design guys in right from the beginning of the project. And I think that's been important in terms of getting the continuity across like what's in the film and also what we're using as marketing collateral, because we're trying to make all of our marketing in-world content, and Psychothol and the tarot cards are a good example of that. So this is how it will play out. This is typically how we would structure it. So this is the online content. So time runs from left to right, and this is the real world stuff. And this is showing the relative timing of that content when we're releasing it. And you'll see that the web series comes before the feature film, but this other content, although we might release it before, it's going to continue on. So people might interact with it before they've seen the film or after. And we need to make sure that it doesn't kind of destroy the experience, because I think one of the key things with transmedia storytelling is that every media should be additive, that it always adds something, so it's not an adaptation of the last one, and that's what we're looking to achieve there. And this is how the project came together. So from the short story, the producer wrote a synopsis, and we sat down and we looked at a transmedia strategy. And so when he went for funding, it was with the transmedia strategy, the director's vision and the synopsis. So we already had an idea about how this film was going to be marketed. And this is a low-budget independent film, which is going to be straight to DVD. So what the producer's looking for is to build an audience or elevate the sales price of this video before he sells it to the distributor. So that's the kind of like his motivation, apart from, you know, he's just generally interested in, having started off with like, this is all bullshit, he actually got into it and he sees that there's quite, you know, there could be some interesting opportunities here. And what we did with the feature script is, I think you could say it was about 80% written. So the core thing, the bit that's really going to generate the revenue for everybody, is the feature film. So it made sense to work on the script first. But then when it was about 80% done, then we started bringing in the other writers for these other types of experiences, because now we had something to go by. Now lots of people start developing a story Bible. The problem when you do that, I feel, is that you could have a story Bible, this fantastic world, but no story. So it's much better, I feel, to start working on the story and then allow that to start, you know, the things that you've developed for that particular story, put into the story Bible, and then start to spread it out. And so we're in this position now where we're kind of iterating through these different stories, and the brand guys have actually influenced some of the stuff that we do in the feature film, because when we sit down, we're saying we need like a backstory for this. Well, what we need is a really cool logo, a really cool design that's like iconic and so on. So we need a backstory for that, just want to chuck anything out there. And then, so that started to create a backstory for some of these characters that supported the marketing, and then we put that back into the script. And we're doing the same with the tarot cards. We know that there's tarot cards in the film, but we also want them to operate as a marketing collateral for us. And so, having developed some ideas for the marketing collateral, we fed it back into the... Now, I know there might be scriptwriters who are horrified by this, but I think that it's a really good way to move forward, because what you want to do is leverage, you know, these early advocates. And so if you can get your marketing collateral to really appeal to the first people, like these early adopters, then you can really generate some word of mouth and really help, you know, power the feature forward.
Robert, how do you use tarot cards to promote the story?
Well, so each card is a little flyer for the movie. You'll have a character on there.
Oh, you make them up?
Yeah. So it's their own. It's a kind of a post, not a traditional, no, it's post-apocalyptic one. And if you assemble, or if you put the cards face down, then you use. Well, the tarot cards from, you know, in the past. We've redesigned them. But you can also tweak the codes that are on the cards, and that will start a little story going as well. So we're building an adventure game based on Twitter that these cards will help enable. And so this is just some of the final slides really. So this is a group that we've set up. Right now it's just a holding thing. We've not really sort of moved it forward very much, because we was waiting for the writer to finish her degree. So now she's graduated, now she can get back to writing it. But what will happen here is that the cards will be available for people to download, and other people will also be able to upload the cards. And the cards are kind of designed, so we had one person look at the game mechanics for the cards, and then the branding guys are actually doing the graphic design. And we're not telling anybody what the rules are. So these cards can be utilised in different ways. And what we're hoping, and what we're going to incentivise or motivate people to do, is come up with rules for how these, or different games on how these cards could be utilised. And this is Psychothol, our fake hallucinogenic drug. So this poster will be in the movie, but it's also part of our marketing collateral. And if you go to the website, you can sign up for the first clinical trial. Thank you very much.
Because we actually started with our idea for our panel, so it's perfect. What as well? Yeah. And panelists, sorry. Yeah, well, and one of you can sit here, or I can sit here, I just need to. Yeah, because actually Robert started us with the how to even approach a transmedia property, and I think we can actually jump immediately to what you were showing here.
Thank you.
And just for everybody,
Now it's used.
let go and the camera over there. Do whatever.
I love that logo.
Everybody. We are going
There will be.
Yeah.
I'm a medium.
Sorry about that. So this panel today is definitely, Robert started us on the great conversation is we've been hearing about what is transmedia, but I'm actually more interested in the how. How do we even approach something this big? And I'd love to introduce our panel. On my left is Jen Gilliman from BayVac, Bay Area Video Coalition, Robert Renaud, Emmanuel Sacuccini from Unit 9, Ryan Tuttle from Atomic Fiction, and of course Brandon Grant from PGA and Western. And the panel, this is more of a round table, and definitely feel, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hands, because this is more kind of a how-to round table of ideas, brainstorming, and open to discussion. Because there's a lot of how-tos, and I think Robert showed us a great example of what it takes to even think about writing for transmedia properties, taking the whole story world and breaking it down into how the audience is going to engage with it. So first of all, I'd love the panelists to introduce themselves, 1 minute each. Start with you, Jen.
Hey, I'm Jen Gilman from the Bay Area Video Coalition, or BayVac. We are a kind of multi-platform storytelling center, and I work directly with social issue documentary filmmakers. We have a week-long lab that will happen in October. There's a call for entries out right now. And so we work with those documentary filmmakers to develop transmedia projects around the subjects of their documentary films. We do a lot of other things as well. I'm also a filmmaker myself and kind of a transmedia experimenter. So it's been really exciting to see the social issue documentary movement kind of head in this direction as well, because there's some really meaningful engagement that we can do with our audiences using all of these platforms. So if anyone here is a documentary filmmaker, please talk to me afterwards as well.
Robert. Hi everyone, I'm Emmanuel. I work with Unit 9. It's a London-based interactive production company. We work with the advertising industry, we work with advertising agencies, and we're producing creative branded entertainment. We're basically going exactly the same direction as what Robert just described, but kindly using the money from the marketing industry to do this and working with advertising agencies. We are trying to put as much emotion as possible into branded interactive entertainment. Our ultimate goal, if we ever achieve it, would be to make people cry on a website.
Hey everybody, my name is Ryan. First of all, thank you all for coming here tonight, and also thanks to Transmedia SF and Maya and Justin who reached out to me to invite me here. It's very humbling to be on this amazing panel. My background is actually more on the side of high-end visual effects and animation. I've been in the Bay Area for about 15 years, and a few years ago founded Atomic Fiction, which is an animation company out in Emeryville. Unfortunately, not Pixar. The next one. So we come across transmedia, and I've done a little bit of thinking of it over the years, but we come across it working with the major studios and major directors. We've worked on, just recently wrapped up Flight, which is Robert Zemeckis' film, Underworld and Boardwalk Empire and Transformers and big projects like that. So I'm really excited to be here and talk about how some of this stuff plays into to those media outlets and the studios.
And my name is Brandon Grande. I am the executive producer and co-founder of Westernized Productions. You heard a little bit about us from Marcello when he first got started. But basically, we are kind of a full-service digital agency, and our work runs the gamut from broadcast to conferences to interactive experiences, whether that's on mobile devices or in storefronts, as well as to similar stuff to doing visual effects and high-end motion graphics. We find a lot of our work is agency-driven and also direct for a lot of corporate clients down in Silicon Valley, which is why I think this is really exciting to be part of this panel, because a lot of the technology and the things we're using come from this hotbed that is the Bay Area. So I think connecting the dots as local producers and creative folks is really, really neat. And I also am, as I said, the chair of the Producers Guild Northwest. So really an advocate for anything that has to do with just being a producer, being creative, and expressing yourself digitally and through transmedia here in the Bay Area.
So the real idea for, again, as I said, for this panel is to bring some different silos. And there's a lot of talk about silos in transmedia. It's almost kind of a buzzword. And transmedia as the umbrella above those silos. The silos would be your agencies, your production companies, your film producers, your game creators and developers, your app creators, and so forth, writers. And transmedia, I think storytelling is kind of an umbrella above it that creates a story world. So I think the first conversation, we've talked a lot about the why of transmedia, but if you have the perfect idea, where do you start?
Well, in my world, which is documentary stories at the core, it's that moment of inspiration. Like what kind of moved you to create that film in the first place? What moved you to tell a certain story? And how can you take that idea and expand it to an audience engagement approach? And how could you bring other people into that story, basically? So it could mean that it leads you to create an interactive online experience or a game or some sort of text messaging type of approach of inspiring dialogue among different disparate groups, but really it starts with kind of like, what's the heart of the story? What are you trying to communicate through the story?
I think there's another element of transmedia that's really exciting, which is that because you're creating a story that's meant to be told across different platforms, you can kind of pick the entry point that is most available to you at that moment to get into the game and start telling that story. And know, and you can sleep well at night knowing that you have so much more story to tell when you can finally get that feature film made. But it's okay to start on Facebook. It's okay to start as a YouTube video. It's okay to just get it going, get the ball rolling. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, Jen, what you were saying is I think it all starts. Pardon me? Speak up? Yeah, sorry. To Jen's point, I think it all starts with story, and then Emmanuel, you kind of mentioned the emotion that you're trying to get when people have this online experience. And I think without a strong story and without identifying what is going to connect with your audience and really make them have a call to action or a reason to engage, and if you don't actually have that same connection as the producer or as the creative mind behind it, then I don't think it's successful. So I think, to me, that's kind of the cornerstone of a successful project, is really strong story, a little bit of passion, and the connective tissue that you share and have intrinsic value with, that you think your audience will also embrace.
I mean, the only thing I would add to that is, like, I think if you get an idea, like a creative idea, then sometimes it might be you might start developing the experience first. Like, what is it that the user or the audience is going to do? And then invent a story to support that.
How do you do that?
Sorry?
How do you develop the experience before you develop?
Well, because, so you might have a premise, like you might have a story that you want to tell. You might just have like a 2-line thing, like a love chime, I don't know, just a nugget of an idea for a story. And then you think to yourself, well, how would I tell that in a real world space? Or how might I tell that interactively rather than as a film or rather than as a book? And so then you start to think about certain mechanics, certain actions that people might take that would illustrate that point. And then having thought through the things you want the person to do, then you kind of go back and fill in with the story to support those actions, rather than starting with a story and then thinking, well, how would I layer the anticipation on top of that? So that's a different.
Yeah, it's a great thought, because one of the things we're trying to do with our Transmedia Jam is actually bring the technologists and the storytellers and the filmmakers together from the get-go. And we're looking at it as like in the 60s when they had the copywriters and the creatives come down to sit in the same office the first time. Because before that, the copywriters would send their stuff to the creatives and come back with the doodle and back and forth, but then they put them down in the same room and they got the first Volkswagen Beetle advertisement come out of that one. So I think there's something shifting in the world, and the idea of bringing the branders and maybe the technologists from the get-go to speak with the creators and the filmmakers and the writers to actually see how they can push the envelope. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, but the idea is not to tell the same story on different media, but is to tell one story, which seems very similar, but it doesn't mean the same thing. And it's very conversational. So it's like you're having a conversation about the same story in different places with the same person. And so you want the right people to be part of this, so they can protect the story in every different rooms, every different space where it is told. And it's adding up and not being redundant, for example, which is very quickly detected on weak transmedia experience, for example. There's no point in having some story you've been part of, you've invested your time and your interactivity on the web, and then you go, I don't know, on social media and you're being told exactly the same thing. That's not the way.
You see that with documentary films as well, right? There's a lot more transmedia documentary films being done these days.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the things that we do at the Producers Institute at Bayback is really create that atmosphere for collaboration across these different disciplines. So the filmmakers collaborating with nonprofit organizations, collaborating with sort of distribution specialists and technologists, and the brain power going towards a project all in the same room at the same time really creates new opportunities that nobody expected before. And the projects often begin in a certain place with an idea, and they go through this process that's iterative and come out with something completely different than what they originally imagined. And I think that's part of the power of like what you guys are doing here, where you have these different disciplines that all can collaborate, and you're in the same place, so you can do that quickly too.
Yeah, and the work has been better because of that. And I don't think it's only here, it's just in general. I think we all depend on collaboration as a key to our success, just to the point of the different facets of getting a project done. There's all these different steps and all these different parties involved. But because there isn't really a true formula that you could iterate over and over again and expect to have successful results, you may say, hey, well, we did this last time, let's follow it. But I think being open to embracing other people's perspectives, to engaging in collaboration, you're going to have much stronger projects at the end of the day, and it may transform from where you originally thought it would go, and hopefully that's going to take it to a much better place than its inception.
Well, the really cool thing also is that I can pretty much guarantee that the major studios aren't thinking about creating content in this way, and so what's really exciting is that this group of people that's in this room right now probably could create stronger stories than most people out there. And instead what's happening, this is Transmedia 101 of course, but what's happening right now is that I've worked on several multi-$100 million projects where we finally finish the project and suddenly the video game division wants to get some assets rendered for their video game. And they're not talking to the writer, and they're not talking to the other departments, and it's all just kind of thrown out there to try to make a quick buck. And that contrast between what's happening, kind of more on the commercial level and what we can do in this room, what you all can do, is pretty profound, especially now that all that content is created much cheaper.
Yeah.
So I think this point of the complexity, the amount of different people we need to do this project, designers, developers, etc., has also brought some thread to the project, which means if everyone has a say at the same level, it can become a very technical or a very graphic design experience. So we came into this kind of issues we've been doing this for about 10 years, and we saw there is a need for a big leader who is responsible for the story. Like everyone has a say, but someone needs to protect the story. And so that is very obvious for a lot of you because you come from film background. But what we did at Unit9 is to have interactive director, which is a total replication of what you do in film, but didn't really exist in the advertising commercial field. We were studios, which is an assemblage of designers, tech people, etc. But now we have this director, and he listens to everyone, but he owns the story and is responsible for the story and is responsible for the emotion. So, because everyone will collaborate, but he will pick and he will veto whatever serves or not the emotional side of the story, and that had the real interesting era.
And Robert, is that something in your projects as well? There's a maybe transmedia producer is the person who actually talks and makes everybody play nice with everybody. Yeah. But there's somebody who's the creator of the world, who's the story world creator that just oversees that. And I think is a transmedia producer more the tactical glue, and the writer and user and the universe creator more the emotional glue?
I think it's the creative role. Yeah. I think on a feature film, the films I've seen, like often the producer just gets all the shit jobs. Like, you know, they have to like, argue with people about busted equipment and all that sort of thing. And I think with transmedia, you get like it's much more creative now because you're looking at all these other different things, and rather than the director, so the director has his feature film to look after, but the producer now is got a much more expanded creative role across these other elements.
So it's definitely exciting. Both, yeah. So it's definitely both a creative and a tactical and strategical altogether.
Question?
Merci. Pardon. I have a question for you. You. Okay. Voodoo. You're speaking about somebody who's the director.
Yeah.
The director of all these variations.
Yeah.
Now, how would you take a work like Madame Bovary and turn it into a transmedia project? Would you have a Balzac as a director? Or whoever it was that wrote it? How would you handle that? Because what do you need all this other stuff?
Well, Balzac would be the amazing scriptwriter in it,
He would?
but not the director. The
there
director
would be a duel between you and Balzac tomorrow morning at dawn.
Well, yes, probably.
Yeah,
but that's how scriptwriters work with directors. Directors are bringing the story to the audience, to the people. They tell, film directors are using visual language. Scriptwriters are using words. Interactive directors are using interactive language to bring the experience of the same story to the audience. So maybe the characters from Balzac would exist as social media character. Maybe you would have a very interesting interactive experience on the social and economical background situation of how did it happen.
Cheap. That's the problem.
No, you couldn't do it cheap.
Robert is
we don't do it cheap.
turning a film, for producing a film for $60,000 and
yes.
like a $60 million. But you could not do Madame Bovary in 15 centimes. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
yes,
it's a new
you
medium,
could?
and yes, you can.
Who said that? I did. I did. I've got 15 centimes, and I'd like to see.
I don't know that I want to speak to.
Yeah, maybe later. Yeah. But I mean,
no, you have the right tone and the right execution for any amount of resources you are given first. And then this is also a new form of media, but well, we work in the advertising world. For example, we just did a project with Digital Domain, which you're probably familiar with. It's a big project. It's a 3 minutes interactive experience. It definitely has serious money in it because it's backed by advertising and by the industry. But that's not the point. If you adapt to the resource you're given, you can tell Balzac by Twitter. If you do it right, you can tell Balzac only with 140 and 140 things. It's, you know, there's a way for you if you're extremely talented.
And they have
we're not destroying storytelling because that's kind of the way you're putting out things. On the other side, we're trying to leverage and improve storytelling on this type of media.
Balzac through Twitter. I'm sorry.
It would definitely not has to be cutting, slicing it down. That would be miserable.
You would have to give lobotomies to all people who agree.
You're telling a story about certain social situation, historical situation, destiny of characters. That is the core of the storyline.
I'm sorry. I'm very impressed by what you gentlemen and ladies are trying to do. It's very mechanical.
Sorry, there's more questions. Sorry. Yeah.
To echo his point in a way, I'm an independent film producer, and I've been engaged in very aggressive social media campaigns and transmedia campaigns. I'm a teacher of film studies and production, and it's on the good graces of my staff interns that I get to mount these fabulous campaigns, which are teeny-weeny compared to yours. What's not being addressed here is how do, I think many of the people in this room actually do what you guys are talking about. Because we don't have, we're not paid. We don't have the magical director and the magical production company, you know? We might actually, you know, court you, and you might give some services to us, and that would be great because the projects I'm working on are fabulous. But in the real world for a lot of independent production, which I think is a lot of this room, what you're talking about is not really viable. And I would love to actually address that a little bit more. I'd like to also point out that the women are sitting off to the side against the wall. Oh, wait, no, it just happens that way. I know.
What are you trying to say?
And actually, probably Robert and you can answer those questions.
I mean, our low-lives project.
Yeah.
I mean, our low-lives projects we only did for $500. So I mean, it's
right, but you're within a system that is...
Well, not, the system is me. And
But then how were you making a living? I mean, I have to teach.
Well, not by doing that film. I mean, that's
right.
so.
You know about the things
But it's
you
like
do
lots
to
of
make a
producers, though, isn't it? I mean, if you look at lots of photographers, they do wedding photography that pays the bills, and they have a fantastic gallery of models and
I'm
everything.
52, and I've been doing it since I was 21, and I have 2 successful features under my belt too. But it's just, like, I'm not hearing from the rest of these folks, really. I mean, Jen, obviously, but you guys do, what, 6 producers a year? Yeah.
Well, I don't really understand the question. You're saying, like, you need lots of resources, and I'm arguing we don't need lots of resources.
Right, and we don't, because I'm actually doing social media and transmedia campaigns right now.
But it's relative to, it's your film is the anchor, correct?
Which is another thing, too, about, like, a simple idea, and then making a film out of a simple idea is really
But I think really the reality...
But no, I mean, I'm fascinated by it.
Well, the reality of it is that, and I can speak completely outside of the business of transmedia because my company is not in business of transmedia. We create visual effects. But the reality of it is that the bar to entry to tell stories today is so much lower than it was 5 or 10 years ago. So.
Open reel VH, half inch to half inch of my first editing.
Right. So nowadays, people can borrow a camera from a friend, cut together a story, tell a story, and put it on YouTube and become a world famous director.
Right.
The next day. Right. So that answers your question in a way. I mean, you just go out and do it.
Right. But a lot of what you guys are talking about right now isn't apropos to us. I would love to hear you talk more about like kind of guerrilla campaigns or like. Ideas about how to like get out there.
Yeah, but let's make sure we don't confuse. The point of this social media and everything is not to make promotion on the story. The story is itself, the different platform and etc. The promotion side is another aspect. So the social media will not be a promotion tool because you want to talk about a movie. The story has to be in itself. On all these different.
Do you guys still believe in, that 3 to 5 minute trailer, getting that out there, getting that through, submitting Sundance, getting it on YouTube, getting initial funding that way?
I think it depends on what your outlet is. I mean, you mentioned Sundance, then you're talking about, going into a feature realm, but we're talking about transmedia. Not everything has an outlet like a festival circuit. So again, I think it goes to, there isn't a formula necessarily.
Right. Talking about first steps.
To answer your question, that's definitely the long-term goal of our company. Today, we're getting our funding from the advertising world. But what we do is entertainment, and we will try working with people who have experience from the entertainment industry down there in LA. We'll be very happy if we can use the film production model, like people paying online to see some very, very cool, emotional, beautiful art. And I'm talking about art, entertainment and art. That's the goal. That's something I pursue, and I hope I'll be tired after that. But we started as it didn't exist 12 years ago. So we're really, with the indie people, we're like at the Lumiere era, you know.
It is kind of the Lumiere area, and even even as the studios are changing their funding ways of thinking, it's not as it was before. Studios are not throwing money at productions. It's much harder, but now we have all these tools like crowdfunding and crowdsourcing and all of that, and that's definitely other ways, and there's other definitely interesting ways of distributing your properties. And I'm saying properties because it doesn't have to be a film. It could be a lot of different things. It could be a film, it could be a novella, it could be an app, and then you can tell the story on social media and hire an intern or somebody or some help like that. I mean, I've seen some.
It's a very good point because this storyline involves the audience much more than other medias, and even crowdsourcing can be a part of the story. You're the audience, but you're also becoming the producer, and the role is tremendous. The role you have because you make it exist, and I think this is probably how we're going to see the first interactive experience based on a real production model and not paid by, let's say, paid by some external source of funding to serve another purpose.
I mean, I just had one other point about that. If you think back before there was Photoshop, if you wanted to do digital art, then you would have to get together with a digital artist who would probably code it for you. And then Photoshop came along and it kind of put the tool into the hands of creative people so that they didn't need coders. And that's where we're coming from with our technology.
I agree. I've been doing it for 25 years. Absolutely.
So that's what I'm saying.
My first posters were punk rock, rip and paste, and spoken word performance art. So I know what you're talking about. As I said, I'm 52 years old, and I keep reinventing the wheel. And honestly, since 1984, I can say I've been ripped off by the industry because we create these new models that are really inventive, and then the industry turns around and co-ops us, which is that's the way human nature is. I agree. But again, can this form address a little bit more how to do a guerrilla campaign that's effective?
But we're not saying it's not about doing a campaign though. It's not about doing the film and then doing a campaign. It's thinking about.
It's thinking them together.
Yeah.
Story that come first.
So
Twitter feed.
There was a gentleman right at the back.
I'm sort of in the same vein. I'm kind of thinking about, am I drinking the Kool-Aid? When do I start drinking the Kool-Aid? So I just want to think about, you're saying multi-platforms, and at that point, who owns the intellectual property of that? Because we're in this era now where everyone's sort of grabbing everybody's stuff and plagiarizing. So at that point, when you start putting it on multiple platforms, who is the original owner of that? But I'm saying if I decide to do a project, like right now I'm working on a film based on gender identity, and so we want to make sure that kids will be able to do a mobile conversation, and then we go to a different, mixed media, transmedia. So how do you keep it from, if you're going to another producer or another writer or another person to do
how to protect your IP?
How do you protect? Yeah.
Get a good lawyer.
I have the answer to that.
It's a good question, but I mean, there are ways to keep it. There's definitely.
I think it just depends where you're going to make the money, because a lot of the stuff that you might do, you're going to give away for free because you want the idea to spring. And so I wouldn't be so worried about that. Just focus on the bit that is the revenue element.
And just register with the writer deal in the Library of Congress.
But it's a good question. I mean, if you're going to try to reach out to colleagues or friends or other people that can put together different pieces of the transmedia puzzle, you need to make sure that everyone understands that, who's the owner, and make sure that's clear. I think that's kind of a challenge that's been addressed for many decades with deal memos and other things like that. I mean, I think that it's pretty. I think if your partners are on the same page with you and you just all decide who's bringing what to the table, you work it out.
But those are all really traditional models, and I think he brings up a really good point, and that is when you're using other mediums like Facebook and Twitter, you present yourself, and you're using crowdsourcing, you open yourself up to an open source model, one, through crowdsourcing, and two, through ownership of that content as it gets transmitted across those social media platforms. They end up becoming not necessarily the owner of the creator or the owner of the originator of the idea, but the owner of the platform. And so you have to be aware of that when you create intellectual property, that you open yourself up to diluting ownership.
I don't think that crowdsourcing means that you have to be open source. I mean, if you look at Iron Sky, it's probably the biggest example of a crowdsourced film for the majority of it, and that's completely owned by the people that financed it. It's not owned by any of the people that actually worked on the film any more than anything else. So it just depends on the rules that you set for people when they come in to collaborate on it.
I think a lot of times what you're talking about is also a benefit to the property or to the franchise, because what you're trying to do in a way, it's this leap that you're making about being kind of, you're giving something away and letting your audiences shape it and mold it and turn it into something else, and creating multiple entry points for different market segments. And so in a way, you kind of want what you're talking about to happen in certain ways, because then someone with a lot of money will come along and want to make a motion picture with your property. You kind of want it to spread. I mean, that's
it's a proof of concept for the next one. So I think that's really the paradigm shift. Is like, hey, you need to be able to embrace this new kind of all these new outlets, and also the idea that people are going to jump on it. They're going to steal your ideas, but if you're not producing enough ideas for them to stick, then I don't think anything is going to stick. Or you're really banking on that one gamble. And I think probably goes for any of us on here. If we just only bankrolled on our passion project or on the one we really sunk our teeth in from the gate, I don't think any of us would be sitting here, quite honestly, because all those projects didn't make me money, or get me any notoriety. So I think it's just about consistency. It's about walking through the fire. It's about learning when you get burned and figuring out how you can do it next time, or embracing that and saying, you know what, well, I didn't know we were going to get this much traction on it, even though none of it benefited me in the form of a greenback. But what are all the other different ROI models that come out of that traction you've just created? And I think that's a huge kind of hurdle for people to accept. But the second I embraced that, I noticed our business change. You got to be able to pull positives that may not be so close in reach.
Contracts have been written, by the way, for underlying rights, and you have your sponsors who are putting up the bucks to make your project, and they have their rights. But underlying all, Robert's creating this very interesting and traditional, actually, structure, golden age of Hollywood, golden age of television, where the writer, producer, creative producers were in charge. And you can write contracts that keep you the underlying rights to the creatives who have created the work.
I want to reiterate just quickly the importance of experimentation and iteration, and taking this lesson from Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and applying it to the independent producer's role. And if you think of it as this is not this giant experience that's going to cost many millions of dollars that you're going to have to orchestrate over many years of time, and it's more, how do you get the conversation going? What do people respond to as your interns are posting on Facebook or asking questions on Twitter, and how many comments do you get? It can start small, and you can experiment and then build from there, and potentially get the funding that you need to sustain or expand a project.
Oh, absolutely. That's how it worked for many, many years.
And I think it still works. I mean, the crowdfunding is definitely, for a lot of companies now, or a lot of, I'm part of a Transmedia project that their first crowdfunding was on Kickstarter, and then we're just raising funds because they already had some awareness about an old book that was around for 20 years, just to do the pre-production. So I mean, we're looking at it as a phase stage. You can start with something, and then you move it forward, and then you move it forward. And it's not about, the studios, hijacking our money, or it's more about where's my audience, and if I can create a compelling story for my audience, and I go and talk to them, they will come and they'll start interacting and being in my story world. So that, that is definitely, it's about how do you engage your audience? How do you engage?
And who is your audience?
And understanding who is your audience.
Yeah. Straight up. Yeah.
And it's a very new form, so we can't go faster than the interest of the audience. It's all new. It's like we started yesterday. It's like we're showing the first ever photography. For the first people who see photography, it's horrible compared to a painting. But years and decades after, it has become a full form of art, and people are compelled into this. We got to keep in mind, we don't even know if we have an audience. We're testing it.
I think maybe this might
bringing something the best we can and see if they like it.
Because we're innovators in the nonprofit and the artistic sector and the filmmaking sector. Is that would have been nice to have more representation from the nonprofit sector about how folks like Jen are moving ahead. I mean, I'm learning a lot from you, and I'm like, God damn, I'm going to do it better than you. But it would be just better to hear like how independents are succeeding in this world at feature forms.
Definitely, I'd love to hear that. You can just a few words about what you're doing in your program. How long is the program being?
The program's been going for 5 years, but it really started as more of kind of a training, mind expansion exercise for independent producers, and it's become more of a laboratory where people come in with a specific project. Usually there's a film that's either in production or post, and they want to take that passionate idea, that nugget of the story that I mentioned initially that usually sparks this type of project, and expand it into a transmedia project that will, in some cases, actually influence the film itself. In others, just become additional material online or educational tools, mobile devices, etc. Like they're thinking across all different sorts of platforms, and we're not encouraging them to smear their sort of distribution campaign across every form of media imaginable, but it's more what can they bite off and chew in a week with some dedicated time and resources from a few developers. And I work with other producers who are not engaged in this week-long laboratory process and don't have that many resources, who are, I'm telling them just take someone out to lunch, get some input from like technology experts that have more information than you do about how to develop a mobile app or a game or whatever it is that they're trying to do, and you can get a lot of information that way too, and begin to build the team around you that you need to execute this type of projects as an independent.
Right, and how do you see that they're funding besides, because the funding of the program is not very high, but they get a lot of mentorship. How do you see them funding these type of projects? Like what?
Yeah, there's very few places for social issue documentary transmedia artists to go for funding these days. There are a few organizations, big foundations that fund this type of projects, and increasingly they're patching together money from Kickstarter campaigns combined with foundation support that's something related to the subject matter of the actual documentary or the project. Partnership with an organization that's going to help drive the kind of overall campaign forward and release the product or story to their own constituencies, and then some public media funding or other types of funding specifically for this type of projects. And yeah, I mean, they're still patching it together, but that was another reason I wanted to reiterate the whole experimentation thing, because the process of prototyping and collaborating and then releasing something slowly and frequently so as to glean more information from initial experiments is really important when you do go to seek funding, because you can say, we did this and this is what happened, this many people responded, or I tried this at one event and it was very successful, and or I learned this, that, and the other, and then it becomes an executable concept as opposed to just an idea.
And it's very much the startup world of really getting a prototype out there to your audience as fast as you can, so you can learn and iterate and grow it. And the more people see it, and the more community sees it, the more actually start to respond. And I think it's more of it's a natural thing for groups to do that. And we're almost talking about group science here.
And what is also exciting and encouraging is you see traditional actors like TV broadcaster, for example, getting interested in here in North America. You have the NFB, National Film Board of Canada. They've produced amazing projects, transmedia project. In Europe, there is a public service TV broadcast called Arte. They're also very active in documentaries, and this is absolutely not commercial. This is transmedia interactive documentaries. And for example, these two sorts of funding have done amazing projects.
Yeah. Unfortunately, America doesn't have those, but we have a lot of OK and openness to entrepreneurs. So people crowdfund here. Yeah. So that's what we do have.
Same question.
Hi, my name is Lynn. I'm actually part of the Producers Guild in LA for media. And I think one of the things that's missing here in this topic, just listening to a lot of topics from producers in LA, is a case study of transmedia. Like the topic here is how to create a transmedia project. It would be great to hear a case study from you guys on, okay, here's our project. How did we get the project? Maybe it was from a client. Perfect. From that project, what did we do to break it down to make it a transmedia project, right? Yeah. I mean, that would just be, the PowerPoint slide was helpful, but it would just be great to hear from everybody else in the panel to talk about it. I think that would be.
We're going to have to come back next year and produce a project all together and show the results to the crowd.
Next 3 hours.
I mean, it would just be helpful, just because I think a lot of people are asking some questions along that sense. Is that we talk about transmedia projects, right? But exactly, one, what is the breakdown of it? Because I do mobile gaming for apps. I can go into transmedia projects myself, but it's completely different from television to film, etc. And I think that would be helpful because you guys are from different silos. That would be very helpful.
But are you talking about
we do have about 30 video case studies from projects that have come through the Producers Institute on on bayback.org. There's a whole set of them. So if you're interested in documentary case studies, there's probably about 30 of those.
Yeah, and in Unit 9, do you have a Safarosa case study online?
Yeah, there's a couple of case studies as well. You need the right writer first. You need people who can write on this different kind of conversation. It's different media, but it's different way to tell a story. So, and having these people avail the ability to write on such a diverse thing it comes across time. They have lots of different backgrounds. But first and foremost, you have to get writers that can write a video game, a website, a book, a novel, a film, same person or the same, let's say, duo or the same creative entity that is able to, that knows how to use all these different languages. So they can tell one story in many languages. Once you have this creative element, this creative person, then it's adding up different skills and different competencies in the different media and platforms.
I agree. So on that Mask of the Red Death example, so we're working with 3 writers in addition to the script writer. And one of the reasons I did that is because I'm interested to work with these people. This will be their first project, because writers are so hard to find, and I don't want to have to keep going to the go-to guy in the UK who's known for doing this sort of like transmedia type storytelling. So we want to start developing relationships with other writers. And there's too few writers who play computer games. So even if they've not written a computer game, it's actually good if they would play one. So that then when you start talking about role-playing games and stuff like that, you're already on the same page before they start writing. It's quite important, I think, because the games industry now is like bigger than the music business, and I think it's going to trump the film business as well. So it's really important.
That maybe some of people talk about who owns intellectual property, where do these things come from? The key to transmedia is allowing other people to come play in your sandbox. You create a story and you allow people to add to it, to buy into your story, to add pieces to it. So it's not so much a piece of who owns it, it's you're putting it out there to the world and you're inviting people to play. And people will know it's yours by
Yeah, but if you want to make money, if you want to be in a structure, in a business, then you have to, somebody ultimately does have to own it. And there is some sort of royalty structure that can be added to it.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think that we've actually hit that critical mass yet.
Education in certain...
At this point, it's more about engaged storytelling and how do we get more eyeballs, especially because old media used to be TV, radio, movies.
It's still the anchor medium.
Yeah, but now we have a generation that's the screen generation. They're busy with their cell phones and their iPads and TV. How do we keep them engaged and create stories that are engaging for the new generation as well as continue to tell engaging stories?
Yeah, it's offering an experience, right?
Exactly
So
what we're trying to do.
Is that experience something that people are going to buy, or is it something that they're just going to participate in, and then maybe they'll go buy something else? I mean, I don't know. It's probably different for every project, but.
And I mean, there's different levels of it. So if you start from the ground floor is how do people actually know about me? You know, I start throwing out things and see if it sticks, and see, you know, with Google Analytics and see if it tracks. If I'm somebody who's like has a lot of money, and we had the case study last year of the Inside experience, which Intel didn't have the eyeballs of the 18 to 28-year-olds. And how do you get those people? They're on their phones. They're not with you. They actually invested a lot of money creating an engaging project. That its mere concept was get more eyeballs to see our logo, to get some awareness, and we don't think that nobody thinks about Intel and Toshiba as their parents' computer, and to basically get the buzz and the level of the cool factor. And I actually talked to the woman who's doing these campaigns, these awareness campaigns. Yes, Intel is huge, but they're very interested in just getting eyeballs on their brand, and it goes, you know, it goes from I'm an independent creator, I want eyeballs on my personality, my personal identity brand, or my personal story, and it goes from above. The high brands want the same thing because there is so much noise out there. How do you get people to engage? And I don't think anybody has the answer. We're all trying to figure it out. And I think it's just going to be more and more and more and more complicated.
I think what is important is to keep what made the old story, the old media work. It's about creating a universe, fiction. We have to keep in mind we're not adding up games and technologies and gamification. This is not the right way. What people are expecting, the audience, they want fiction, they want escapism. They want a universe that is fictional and that brings fantasy and imagination, and that has to be the core of, and that's exactly what this project you were talking about was doing. And what we're trying to do is to keep these ingredients and deliver them exactly to the audience you just described.
A couple more questions.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
She was before.
So my question is about, it's kind of inspired by your question regarding revenue. I have a sense that everyone up here is here because they love storytelling, and that's the reason I'm here. But then thinking about revenue, I started to wonder if anybody's projects have done any kind of personal data collection the way that Facebook does, and if you think that might be a road in the future that some transmedia projects might explore, where the data itself is the product that's being sold versus the story or the experience. Do you see people paying for the experience maybe, or advertising paying for people, or that data being sold on the back end?
Well, in Europe, there's some quite big issues about data privacy, so I don't think that. So the question was, you know, is there a market for selling data? So you might give away a transmedia experience and then sell the data. Is that right? In order to fund
Right.
it?
I mean, I'm sure there would be a market for it, but I'm wondering if that's.
I think that would be a kiss of death. I mean, I think that's not something that I would encourage. I think it's better to actually think of a creative idea and then experiment with stuff and then find what people will pay for. So just give you an example. In Bristol, like a town in the UK, this October, and you have them in San Francisco as well, there's going to be like maybe 5 or 6 companies putting on these street games, and I've just paid like £15, so like $20 for 4 people to go and play like this street game where we're going to be sort of like surveilled and, you know, this kind of surveillance mystery thing. And so I'm actually paying proper money there. Now for those people to feel confident enough that they're going to be able to pull that game off, and for me to have confidence in them that it's worth my $20, they would have done lots of other things along the road that maybe they didn't make money on, because they was experimenting, they built up credibility. When I went to their website, I saw stuff they'd done before, which may or may not have been for free. And I think the problem is that the world has changed, and too many people are looking for like, well, I'm losing revenue on this, where's the next money pot? Well, we can't tell you exactly. People are still buying what they've always bought right now, but it's a case of experimenting and finding your way. As I showed on that low-rise project, the money's coming through sales of the book on Kindle. So it's $2.49 on Kindle, some people buy it, but we're still giving everything away for free. It's free on the website, but it's not a perfect marketplace. And there's not everybody are going to explore and try to find free stuff and, you know, and just get what they can. There's a lot of other people that just buy from other recommendations. So it's a case of just experiment. I don't think that's a good, to get back to the data question, I don't think that's a good, what we do look to do with our storytelling platform is use the data to modify the story. So we're creating like persistent story worlds that evolve. Yeah, exactly. So the community activity comes in, and then we can say, right, most people, so I talked about a love story. So on Facebook, you could have a character that says, oh, I really don't know, should it be Simon or David? So then it generates a conversation, and our platform will look at, so the people going for David or going for Simon, and then at a particular decision point, then the character will come back and say, oh, you know, I'm going to go with David, the most popular, or she might go against the grain, whatever. So, sorry I chose a woman. I could have been a man. I don't know whether to have Maria or Tracy or whatever. I thought you was getting ready to tell me.
The content here is a little bit
There was actually one more question here.
Yeah, sorry.
Are you monetizing your tarot cards?
Sorry?
Are you monetizing?
Yeah.
They're just artifacts.
Yeah.
eBay.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, there's one.
I'm having trouble formulating this. I think it's more of a comment than a question, but I just, as an artist, I'm a little allergic to the concept of trying to figure out what the people want and then how to carve your thing out and make it so that it will work for that. I've spent a lifetime making art that I feel is, you know, comes from my vision as an artist, and then let the people find it if that's the thing that interests them. But I am really, really allergic to the idea of building into the process of creating my work, you know, sort of like what's hot or what's going to make people, you know. And I'm all in favor of figuring out a way to create buzz around art once it exists, or even as you're in the process of creating it. But I really have a hard time with this idea of like having a kernel of an idea
it's
and
not
then...
about creating buzz, it's about creating engagement. So when you paint a picture or do some sculpture, you stand back and you go, that looks amazing, people will want to engage with that. And so what we're saying is you're creating stories that people want to engage with. And it's not about just creating buzz, it's creating something that is attracting people.
For me, it's not. For me, I'm not trying to create something for the purpose of attracting people. I'm trying to create something for the purity of how good the thing is that I'm creating, and then it will attract the kind of people that share that vision or are attracted to that. But I don't want to mold what I'm doing.
But you don't need to stop doing that. You can still do that.
We gotta make a very clear difference. We're not doing user-generated content, which means you put an advertising campaign and you say, people shoot yourself with your mobile phone when you're doing whatever and send it on the web and it's going to be art. This is absolutely not what we're talking about. There is a creator. There is someone who has a vision, a story, a universe, and the way to engage in this art form means you can bend it somehow or you can play a part in it. But if the creator steps back too much, this is not interesting to us. This is really not what we want to do. Because in the end, it becomes a collection of terribly lousy mobile phones video, and this is absolutely not the point.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
I get
like,
that.
how can you begin to
There has to be a
experiment
creator.
with these ideas, though?
Well,
and you're
I enjoy that
creating
idea of
back-
experimentation because that's always been a part of what I do, experimentation. And I think that part of the art form itself can be this experimentation, and the reactions of people can be part of what the piece is. I've made pieces that have absolutely to do with that, but I think there's a fuzzy line between that and like saying, well, I have an idea, and before I can even start making my idea, I want to kind of do some market research and see like what's going to buzz for people, and then I'll craft my story to fit that. No, that I'm really allergic to. But I do like the idea of making a piece where you know, there's an experimentation with with like a domino falling and what happens and how it, you know, it's difficult to sort of frame what it is that I'm saying.
What your end goal is too.
Exactly.
I mean, and everybody has a different end goal. So it sounds like for you, it's really about being true to yourself and your art form and doing what's right for you and what has intrinsic value. And I think it's just about, you know, it sounds like you don't care about your audience necessarily, for lack of a better term.
It's not that I don't care about
right,
the
but like
that
not that you don't care, but it's like you don't want to build or change what's at your core for an audience. You want to draw the audience who really respects and understands what's at your
Doesn't
core.
do market research before you create the work.
Yeah, but what about making a piece of art?
I think we're running out of time. We're going to get one up there, and that's it.
Could you talk just a little bit? You mentioned Google Analytics, but could you talk just a little bit about the process of where and how you're listening, and then how you're shifting what you're hearing in that engagement process?
It's preconceived by, we were talking about the creator. There's a creator, he's writing a story that is flexible eventually, or more than that people are part of it, but it's being thought about by a creative person, by the creator. So the way the data, the way the analytics are gonna bend the story and all the potential directions have been thought about.
So
It's not like we're changing our thing as it goes. It's more like it's a non-linear, multiple scenarios that should be reactive. Let's say that might be the right word. It's reactive storytelling. It's not people writing what they want. There's a creator. There's a guy who...
I have one specific tool to recommend to independent producers. We participated in early development for this project called the Impact Dashboard, and it became Sparkwise. My predecessor at Bayback, Wendy Levy, is kind of leading that effort at a design firm called Tomorrow Partners. And the website is just Sparkwise, but it's the dot is before the SE, and you can bring all of your data sources into one place and then correlate them and see how many people are tweeting about a subject matter, you know, when an event occurs and outside of your project, how that influences how many people are interacting with your project and things like that. It's definitely worth checking out, and it's free for independent producers to use. So.
And Robert's presentation was very good in that regard. You had the matrix, where as the creators, they had figured out the different potential reaction of the different group of audiences, and they have foreseen what they would offer to this different quadrant in their matrix. Yeah. That's a perfect, I think, illustration of what we're trying to do.
I think as well, right? So if it was a feature film, you'd have to either be in the theatre to watch people reacting to it, to see when they laughed, or you do like an exit questionnaire or something like that. But I think with interactive, like with Conductor, everything that comes in and out is journaled to a file. So we know if people start dropping off, that they're not being entertained. So then we can go back in and re-script it. So we don't ask the audience to re-script it, but we can see from their behaviours that they're not getting something, or they're dropping off. And so then we look at how can we change that and modify it. So it's, and then with this Roswell project, we actually stood on the street and started. So the idea was they wanted this experience to run for 2 weeks, and we find out that most people don't even stay a night. They turn up because they're on their way to somewhere else. So we, I think, you know, in retrospect, what we would have done is just turned up on the street before I developed anything with just a flyer and tried to get people, just get some immediate feedback. And then, so it's quite interesting, I think. It's nothing short of going to talk to people.
Yeah, final words from each of you, because we're getting a little bit late. Brandon?
I think I'll kind of end where I started, which is just that I don't think there's any recipe or an equation for any of the projects that we do. I think it's probably boils down to, you know, having the cornerstone that you feel good about, really collaborating, being open to other people's insight. I think also to Emmanuel's point, having a leader at the end of the day, you need somebody who codifies everything, and really just having passion and sticking behind what your passion is, because a lot of people, it sounds like, you know, how do we do this? How do we really build traction? And I think it's just through dedication and passion. And I know it sounds cliche, but you know, 10 years ago, it was my brother and I in our basement. That's where I met Maya. And you know, now we have 15 employees and still trying to shoot for the moon, and we're not there, but I never would have thought I'd be there. And it's all because of just drive and passion and sticking with what I thought was right inside.
I think from the standpoint of an independent producer or independent storyteller, it's really about you know, utilizing the resources that you have available to you to get your story out there, and that means finding the right entry point to bring your story to the masses and start there. And that could be anything. I mean, it literally could be, as you said, you know, half hour ago, tweeting what the story is, or finding a way to start telling your story for free. If you know someone that can create an iPhone app, it might be through an iPhone application. It really is about pulling together, just like it always has been, you know, the friends and family and resources that you have to create something, and then hopefully what you're doing is really great, and that'll take you somewhere.
No, I think with producers, so we should do what probably every producer have done forever, and will do forever, is protect the emotions, make sure the vision and what is given to the audience, whenever the era or the technology is, it has to be emotions to get the engagement and to get the people follow the story you want to tell them.
I mean, I agree with Ryan that you should start with what you know. Like, look at where your strengths are and the resources you have available, the people you know, and then try to build out from there. I think that's the best place, rather than jump into something more hard.
I will add to that this is how we build a community. We had a wild idea to take over Rob's idea from a few years ago, and it was not activated. And in 20 days, we gathered the people, we got our sponsorship, and we got our first January event without anybody paying us or telling us what to do. We just decided we'd do it. So I mean, this is just a case study for a project. It doesn't have to be Transmedia, of course, but I think whatever's true for creating movies is true for any other project in the world. Is, you know, get the people you feel good around and trust, and build a dream team like that with trust and collaboration, and then try it out and see what happens if you're brave enough. I think it's being very courageous in the face of a lot of fears and a lot of doubt. So that's my 2 cents.
I think if you're thinking about like authoring an experience, it's really fun to start with no constraints whatsoever. What type of experience would you lead someone through if you were going to sit them down and tell them a story, or take them on an emotional roller coaster, or walk them through a museum exhibit, or whatever the thing is? What would that ideal no constraints experience look like? And then begin to apply all those constraints of time and money and resources and team and, you know, what you have accessible to you, and work from there, and then start with the experiments to develop.
I mean, if you go to our website, you can sign up at the community, and if you drop me a line, and I'll let you use Conductor. And I like communicate with loads of people in independent projects. We've got like 40, so there's about 700 people in our community, and we've opened it out to about 40 people now that are like doing different experiments and so on. And I like communicate with them and offer them advice and stuff like that, because, you know, it's new, and we're like investing money in this, hoping it's going to become big. And so we want people to come and try it.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.